Today on the Relationship Renovation podcast, we have an episode called It's Worth It. And we talk about the two things that have been most important for us in building a really connected, loving relationship.
But when we have a big fight now, there is zero fear in me that we're not supposed to be together.
But then it was also I'm not alone. I don't have to carry this burden all by myself.
We still suffer, we're still triggered, we're still uncomfortable, but we're in it together now.
But that's not an easy process.
Hello all, and welcome to the Relationship Renovation podcast. I'm Tarah Kerwin.
And my name is EJ Kerwin.
And today we are always happy to be here and always swirling around ideas in our head about what's our next podcast. And yesterday, something happened yesterday in the car with my daughter, and it was so compelling. So that's, I don't know if you want to share about what we're going to be doing today, but.
Well, the title we kind of have come up for with today is it's worth it. It's all worth it. And I've just noticed, a lot of what we do here is we talk about concepts that help couples stay connected, about the obstacles to feeling really connected and loving in your relationship. And we have to be practicing all these things in our relationship in order to be genuine, and also on some level to know whether they're working. And what I've noticed a lot in the past months really is that we're doing a lot better. We still face a lot of the very same challenges that we've faced from very early on in our relationship, but we're just much better at it. It's not quite as, the intensity is lower. We talk about intensity, frequency, and duration, right? And the intensity is lower. The duration is shorter. And the frequency, that we don't get into as many conflicts. And that makes it feel like everything we've gone through, it's all worth it.
It's all worth it. And the time that it took and the patience that it took and the work that it took to get to this place that we're in right now. I think so many couples out there, especially when they're in a really difficult, challenging spot, feel really hopeless. And they want just this quick fix, I just want to be better. And really just starting the process already makes you feel better. And then it's just about committing to that process no matter how long it takes. It's learning those skills. And again, because we have to practice what we preach or we would be total hypocrites. Let me tell you the story of what happened.
I'd love to hear it.
So my daughter, I was actually driving her home from her therapy appointment yesterday. And she was like, Mom, what happens if you and Dad get into a big fight and you actually don't make it through and you don't resolve it? And I was like, okay. And I just stopped me for a second. I was like, honey, that won't happen. We're tight. She's like, you're tight?
Tight.
I said, yeah. And it got me thinking because they see our little quarrels or whatever. But when we have a big fight now, there is zero fear in me that we're not supposed to be together, that we'll break up or that we won't resolve it. And it just felt so damn good. And I'm like, okay, what we're doing is working. It might have taken, lots of time and dedication and, growing our podcast and having our counseling center and just doing our own work and our own therapy, blah, blah, blah. But it actually feels so nice that I can say that to my daughter. And she just was like, that's so great.
That's hilarious. So I knew you had somewhat of this conversation with her, and because you were joking with me last night and she was joking about tight.
We're tight.
And so then this morning when we got home from the gym together, and I literally had 10 minutes to take a shower, get ready, get out of the house with the kids. And you and I had this tense interchange around it. And you walked out of the room and Mia looked at me and she was like, tight. You guys are really tight this morning.
Right. But that again, us having that confidence, it's just a mirror for our children and our family too. And I'm not here bragging like, oh, we finally got our shit worked out.
Because it's still hard.
It's still hard, but it's really just to have hope. Like if you truly feel hopeless, like there is hope if you want to dedicate your time and your energy to this relationship. Like that was something that I didn't waver on. Like even though we were going through really difficult things, I just knew that I loved you and that you were my best friend. And so that was an easy decision. It was just really hard to go through all of it. But when you showed up and did your work and I'm showing up and doing my work and then we do our work together, that's what made it possible. Like I don't think if you didn't do your work and if I didn't do mine, that we can be sitting here today. And so I thought maybe reflecting on what was reality then, what's reality now, and really the things that we've endured to get to this place where our relationship does not feel, for me, threatening at all anymore. And you feel totally safe to me.
Yeah.
And you guys know, if you've listened to a lot of our podcasts, there are so many times where I don't feel safe, and I get really triggered and I see EJ as like the bad person. And like I've worked through it. It took a long time and it took a lot of therapy, but it feels really good because you also showed up in this safe way for me instead of defensive and reactive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the dynamic is, within our relationship and then with many, many relationships is there's this beginning period where, and I was sort of referencing it last night, we were talking like as you were making us popcorn, that I look back and there was this, maybe year-ish for us, maybe a little bit longer period where it was just so easy and it was like so fun and we were just like, we were playing and the attraction level was out of this world and it was just very like, it felt very light for a period of time. And then it got very real very quick, and with some couples, it's a little more of a gradual getting realness. And for some, it's very like quick and stark. And it was quick and stark for us. Mm-hmm. We went on our honeymoon, we got pregnant, we had twins, we blended the families. It was just like, it went from this like period of fun and playfulness to a prolonged period where just everything got real and the stress levels were higher and each of our maybe negative coping habits popped up. Those two things had very rarely interacted with each other in the past.
That's very true.
And then they constantly were interacting with each other for a decade,
right.
And that's where it's worth it. It was, I think what we're referencing is all the work that we had to start doing once it got real.
And we were faced with for me, I was faced for the first time with like my own like individual suffering within the relationship that felt so like I couldn't leave because now we have kids. Like before I could just leave relationships. I'm like, I'm suffering. See you later. I'm out of here. And I couldn't do that now. Like I was like, I need this person. And like I actually was faced with having to stay and work on my shit, AKA no longer being the serial monogamist that I used to be. And that was the start of it. Because if that never had happened and I had left, I'd probably be still playing the same game somehow and not wanting to suffer because we don't want to suffer as humans. But yeah, so I was faced with my own anxiety, postpartum depression, rejection, resentment towards you, blended family, overwhelm, financial strain. Oh, so much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what we were faced with and what many, many couples are faced with was our own stuff.
Right.
That maybe neither of us had a really deep understanding, definitely, and maybe even an awareness of. And that stressful situation of our lives combined with how we interacted with one another like presented aspects of myself that I didn't even really know existed, right? And they were problematic, you know, and it was like this long period of becoming aware, being willing to look at it, learning to be tolerant of you sort of like holding up the mirror, but it didn't feel like a mirror. It felt like instead like you were just like, you know, pushing a perception upon me that I wasn't ready to look at, or didn't, you know, just didn't have any awareness of. And then like slowly becoming open to this idea that we work with couples with is our relationship gives us the opportunity to become our best selves.
Yeah.
But that's not an easy process.
It's not. You have to be willing to kind of let go of control. Like, because what you thought it should be is never, ever what it is. And so many people are so wounded by that. They're just so disappointed that then they think they can find it in another person. And I found that that's not true. And so like that, it's like grief. Like, God, I thought it was going to be so different, and here's what it is. And I feel so bad. And that grief period, like, okay, I can either stay in this, but it can be different. Because I know that EJ and I are like really good people. It can be different, but there's just this grief period. And that's such a time of suffering that most people, right? 50% of people decide to get out of it. I'm not joking. That's the statistic right now.
Yeah.
So that's like, right? That's compelling.
Yeah.
Because it really is hard.
You know, we've a lot of times framed it as like, well, we were able to do this work between you and I because of the fact that, you know, we were therapists and we started the center. And I think that's a part of the story, but I think another part of the story, you know, is the truth is we didn't start the center till years later, you know. And so what was it about us, or what was our process, do you think, in really like figuring out how to see that discomfort and that conflict between the two of us as really our own personal growth, our own personal stuff that was coming up? Like, how did you think we got to that place?
I mean, I wish there was one answer. I mean, I just remember I was being someone that I wasn't at all, that wasn't true to my heart. Like, I feel like I'm a really lighthearted, loving energy. And what was happening is I felt dark, and I felt very overwhelmed, and I felt like this is not who I'm supposed to be. And I felt ugly, like internally ugly. And that did not feel good. I mean, that's when I came up with our little code word, like, EJ, I feel like I'm a monster. Like, if I keep in this situation right now, like, I'm going to say things to you that like aren't me. So I just had to recognize who I am at my essence versus all of these things that are coming out in this huge state of overwhelm. Yeah. And it wasn't me. And so I wanted to get back to some sort of light inside of me, because I wanted to model that for my children. And I knew I had had that with you before. So I guess that would be my answer.
Well, and I think like for me, there was this sort of movement back and forth between blaming you, you know, for being like, oh my God, like this, like I cannot believe she's being this way, or I can't believe she's talking to me this way, or I can't believe she's being so hard on me, or whatever. And exactly what you're saying of like, man, I can't believe that I'm thinking these things, and I can't believe that I've flipped her off, you know, or I can't believe that
I've done the double flip.
That you gave the double flip.
Continue. See, we can laugh about it now.
Yeah. But it was this like tug of war for me internally of like taking personal ownership, even when you might be acting in a way that's not okay, that didn't feel loving, that you know was, you know, reactive, and that's what's so hard for couples, is the fact that like it is inevitably your partner does do things that are just like, it's not okay that they're doing it. It's not okay that they're saying it that way. It's not okay that they're the things that they're saying. It's not okay the actions that they're having, but that doesn't absolve you from your own personal responsibility for the one thing that you can, that you do have some control of, which is myself. I can't, in those moments of high stress, I couldn't get you to do anything different than what you were doing. The only thing I had power over was how I reacted in those situations. Mm-hmm. But yet it's just so enticing to just sit there and be like, and blame you, to make it your fault.
Yeah, for sure. I had the same experience. And, I know like probably a lot of you have like listened to our story, and we won't share our story all over again, but I will. I think it's really important to say like what has been the most helpful, because it's doable and it's freedom and it feels really good. First of all, like I know now when I'm out of my window of tolerance. I used to not know. I used to maybe have wine to get me into my window of tolerance was actually not good. Like I used to do these things like cleaning will get me into my window of tolerance. A couple glasses of wine will get me like, no. I now know how to regulate most of the time. I'm going to say 90%. So I don't function out of my window of tolerance anymore. Like that is huge, because when you function outside of that window, it is not good. Everything is escalated, exacerbated. You're in fight, fight, freeze. So for me, learning how to understand and know when I'm out of my window, and then I take my little time for me, however that looks. Like for me, that has been very helpful.
Can you elaborate for our audience on window of tolerance? Like help them understand, what is a window of tolerance?
Window of tolerance is like you're present enough to engage in conversation, even though it might be difficult, where you have clear thinking. When you're outside of your window tolerance, that's where like my brain literally feels like a bowling ball. Like I get heavy in my head. My heart rate is rapid. I feel impulsive. I feel very threatened. And so there's no way I'm present at all for any type of conversation or resolution. And then my reactivity is going to induce reactivity within you, because I'm already got my threat system up. Now you're going to have yours up, and now we're off to the fights. And this is what we see when couples come in. And so for me, I've learned, right, over time and therapy, how to recognize when I'm getting out of that window. And then I go cry, then I go listen to music, whatever I do, and then I come back.
Yeah.
And so I remove myself, because I don't want to do that to myself anymore. I was in a chronic state of out of my window of tolerance for years, and it destroyed my little nervous system. So I had to like learn how to regulate it again.
Yeah. I mean, another way to look at window of tolerance is it's those moments when you're outside of the window of tolerance, when you're in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, when you are literally, your central nervous system is perceives you as in danger. And that's what's interesting is with couples, it can look very different, because maybe Tarah, when she's outside of her window of tolerance, it looks like an excited state. It's where she's more animated and
excited, anxious,
yeah. Right? And for me, being outside of window of tolerance is shut down, is not
you look
present.
Frozen.
Yeah, is frozen, is locked up inside, and so it looks very different, but it's really the same thing. And so in those moments where where both of us are outside of our window of tolerance, and Tarah is her reactions are big, and I'm frozen, that's not a good recipe. It's not a good recipe.
Yeah. And so for me, number one, for me, that was like super helpful, right? But then coming back. So like, right, my story is that you used to get really defensive if I had any type of feedback, because you're like, that's not how I saw it. And let me tell you all the ways why I have not done that. And I was like, I'm crazy, dude. Like, I swear this just happened. Like, what is going on? So now I can share what happened, and you're like, thank you for letting me know. Or I hear that like that tone made you feel really uncomfortable. Like instead of you having your own story of defending against it, you're now like, you're validating my experience. And again, boundaries are important here because it's not about if I'm like verbally attacking you, like you get to have a boundary and remove yourself and vice versa. So the one thing that was helpful for me was learning how to regulate and get out of, to stay in my window of tolerance when we're going to have a conversation. And the thing for us, right, that cycle that used to happen was I would be reactive, you would get defensive, you would tell me why what I was feeling wasn't okay or how to fix what I was feeling because it must be all me. And now you just validate my experience. You're like, gosh, I hear that my tone that felt really hurtful for you. I'm really sorry. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, like that, it just makes it so much more smoother. And I hope I do the same for you. I'm kind of just sharing what have been the two biggest things for me is you working on your defensiveness and you turning it into validation and support and me being able to recognize my own window of tolerance. Those two things over time, we have very skillfully gained, right?
Yes. And I can piggyback on that because I think part of what came up with this idea for It's Worth It was something that happened just the other night where you got really upset about something and it actually wasn't me. It was something else that was happening within our family. And normally I would have got defensive and I wouldn't have been supportive. And then you in your angry state would have tried to communicate to me what you would have wanted me to do. And then I would have got more defensive because of the way you'd be telling me it. But because I didn't get defensive, I was able to resource back to, okay, in these moments, she doesn't want me to solve the problem. She doesn't want me to be judgmental at all. She just wants me to comment on her and be very, very empathetic to why this moment is so difficult for her. And so I was able in that moment to say, hey, I know this is like really this, that, and this. And and it didn't escalate the situation. It didn't like totally turn it around, but I think you felt heard, you felt validated. And so it allowed you then, like I wasn't going to have the ability to bring you back into your window of tolerance, but getting supported by me gave you the ability to slowly do it on your own.
Yeah, I went in the bathroom and I cried. And remember, before we went to bed, I was like, thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
So how about now turn it on to you? Like what has...
Well, I mean, I had a huge moment the other night. It was like very important for me in my own process, but also in building confidence that when I open up in a vulnerable way that I will be supported by you. And it was around money, is that like I stress a lot about money and I had been doing it all day. And as we were going to bed, I don't even remember what opened the door. I don't remember if you asked me or if I just brought it up, but I just said, hey, I'm really like, I'm very stressed about money right now. And you were perfect. You said, you were perfect there. You said, no matter what, we're going to be okay. No matter what happens, we're going to be okay. And so what that said to me was like, it's safe to say this. You didn't go like, oh my God, what's going on? Well, tell me what's going on. What's wrong?
I wanted to.
I'm sure.
Because I was afraid, but I was like, actually, no, like he needs my support right now. That's
you said everything's, no matter what, it's going to be okay. And so it made it, for me, it was safe. I can talk about money without it freaking you out. And then I feel like it's not safe to talk about it. But then it was also like, I'm not alone. Like I don't have to carry this burden all by myself.
Say that one more time. I feel like that's so important.
I didn't feel alone in it. And that's because that's so often what pulls people apart.
Feel alone in my suffering when that thing happened in our family. Yeah. So I just want to share. I felt the same.
And so,
way.
I mean, that's it's worth it, right? Is that we can get more and more, and you out there, you can get more and more skillful with your partner in those difficult moments so you don't feel alone in them in a relationship. Because we've said this a number of times, there is nothing worse. No, that's not true. It is one of the most difficult things to feel is lonely when you're with someone. You know, if you're lonely and you're not in a relationship, it sort of is like, well, that's what I'm supposed to feel, you know. But if I'm lonely and I'm in a relationship like that is not a good feeling. And that's why it's worth it right now, is that we have uncomfortable moments. We still get into arguments. We still have difficult dynamics within our family. We still have the normal struggles that human beings have in this world, but we feel more together. Or if there is a fracture, we come back together much more quickly.
I think it's important just to hear that one more time, or maybe even say that we still suffer, we're still triggered, we're still uncomfortable, but we're in it together now. Like we're really getting used to being in it together and supporting each other, even if that source of suffering is the other person or something close, like within our family, right? And I also heard you say that, right, in order to create what your experience was, the vulnerability piece, you've got to be able to take emotional risks. So you saying it was a huge risk, because I could have been like, oh my God, what's happening? Yeah. Right?
And you may again, and that's okay too.
But
right?
that you took that risk and then you gave me the chance. But a lot of us don't give our partners the chance because we already assume it'll be like the worst case scenario, but that's not fair, right? And there were so many moments in our relationship where I didn't give you a chance and you didn't give me a chance. And somehow we ended up, maybe it's because of this work we're doing with our couples, but like we have to give each other a chance in these moments. Like, you're a good human, I'm a good human. We are good at heart and we suffer. And so, yeah. And so I love this episode. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done.
And thank you for the work we've done.
And for the continued work we will do.
Exactly. And we'll
still have hot dog fights.
I mean, it's why we believe so much in what we do, and why we have our counseling center with a relationship renovation method. And it's why we have the relationship renovation at home program, is that we need to have a structured way in which we look at our relationship, look at our individual growth, understand our partner better. Like it just doesn't happen accidentally. It doesn't happen just like, we don't tumble and trip into a healthy relationship. It's so much more effective to work in a structured way of having certain conversations that allow you to understand yourself better, understand your partner better.
And that's important because, you know, the couples that come into our counseling center and our method that we developed, it's like 4 to 6 months, but we're like, it's not like in 6 months you're going to be like, yee-hoo, we have the relationship of our dreams. It's like you will learn the skills, you'll learn new language, you'll learn how to communicate better and to be more vulnerable. And then you take all of that, the skills and the processing and the emotional safety you've created, and then you carve out that journey for the rest of your relationship, for the rest of your life. And now you have something and all of these tools and ways of relating to each other that you didn't have before. Yeah. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to go to Relationship Renovation Counseling Center in 6 months. Like, it's going to be perfect. Absolutely. We're very honest about that. Like, no, but we're going to help you get language and shared experiences together, you know, and we have some awesome things coming out in January 2025, right? To help even increase more support around that, especially for people who aren't in Tucson, who can't come in person to our counseling center. But yeah, like a high five to you on our foot.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you learn these new things, you have to do them over and over and over and over again. Because now it's worth it for us, because we use these tools like almost, it's getting to be instinctual to use these healthy tools versus before, where it was instinctual to use unhealthy ways to cope and relate to one another.
I love that you said that. I would never have used those words, but like yesterday when Mia was like, Mom, if you and Dad got into this, and I hadn't even thought about it, but it's like, yeah, no, like our instinct now is to like do healthy communication stuff and support each other. Like, didn't even realize like that's our new normal because we've been practicing it over and over. And so, yeah, again, it's It's work. It's work, but it's worth it.
But it's worth it.
I like that title. It's work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
So again, like, please, if you're needing any support or questions, like, we always love hearing from our listeners. And, you know, if you even like this episode or something that you relate to about what we're talking about, like, we are here to support our relationship renovation community and feel very inspired by the stories that you send in.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
And if you're one of those couples who's already, joined the Relationship Renovation at Home program and you're facing bumps in it, reach out to us. Send us an email, info@relationshiprenovation.com. We love to support you in that process. And we know that relationship renovation at home is a super effective tool, but sometimes you need a little bit more. And that's what sort of Tarah alluded to in 2025 is that we're going to add a coaching element to that as well. And so if that's something that you're interested in, please let us know. info@relationshiprenovation.com. Share your stories, ask for support, and keep your ears open because we got some really exciting stuff we're going to be putting out in the next few months.
And as always, thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. You both deserve it. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.